Hello. Um, as you can see, I have had to change my location because oh, yes, because all of my furniture is gone. So I'm trying to find it. Okay, maybe, hold on. Maybe, how's that? That's better. Uh, we moved all my furniture up to LA, but I myself have not gone up to LA yet because of reasons. Because I have a couple other things that I need to get finished down here in San Diego first. And LA is kind of dangerous right now. So I'm just going to chill out down here. Also, in my usual fashion, I am baking right now. It's called I'm trying to find right now I have no bed and no desk. So this is a chair that my parents moved up here so that I have like a space of my own. Um, but I have no bed, no chest, no dressers. So basically, I just have all the things that I don't wear ever in my closet and two suitcases full of the rest of my stuff. And that's what I'm living on right now, and will be living on for the next 5 weeks. 5 weeks. Cool, 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 cool. Um, so yeah, but anyways, in about 15 minutes, it's very hard out here. In about 15 minutes, I'm gonna go get my cinnamon raisin jumble loaf out of the oven. It smells good, but it doesn't look like it's really baking. So it's probably gonna need longer than we want it to take to finish, which means that I'll be running up and down the stairs with you guys. So it's gonna be a bit of a jumpy chapter, but we'll get there when we need to. So hopefully you can hear me just as well. This will be like a little more of a formal reading session, sort of. I guess at least like placement instead of this is like now it's like Sophie's Corner. What will we discuss today? All right. So, what happened Friday in Wuthering Heights? What indeed? Okay, so Kathy resolves to go to Wuthering Heights to talk to, oh God, I want to call him Edgar, but no. To talk to Linton, baby Linton, is a baby Linton. And Isababy's like, oh, you can never ever leave me again. And Kathy's like, oh, I never ever will. And basically, they've just resolved to be more into each other than ever. And of course, Nellie thinks that they've stopped seeing each other, but I highly doubt that that's the case. And that's not a very good. What am I trying to say to you? Recap, but that's all I have for you. All I have for you. So, okay, let's get started with the next chapter. Wuthering Heights, Volume 2. They could indeed. I also can't really read the comments as well, so I'll try to get you as close to me as possible. Yes, all my furniture moved, so this is all new. It's the same room, but slightly different location. Okay. Wuthering Heights, Volume 2, Chapter 10. At the close of 3 weeks, I was able to quit my chamber and move about the house. Nellie got sick, I remember. And on the first occasion of my sitting up in the evening, I asked Catherine to read to me, because my eyes were weak. We were in the library, the master having gone to bed. She consented rather unwillingly, I fancied. And imagining my sort of books did not suit her, I bid her please herself in the choice of what she perused. She selected one of her own favorites and got forward steadily about an hour. Then came frequent questions. Ellen, are you not tired? Hadn't you better lie down? Now, you'll be sick keeping up so long, Ellen. No, no, dear, I'm not tired, I returned continually. Perceiving me immovable, she essayed another method of showing her disrelish for her occupation. It changed to yawning and stretching Ellen, I'm tired. Give over then and talk, I answered. That was worse. She fretted inside and looked at her watch till 8, and finally went to her room completely overdone with sleep, judging by her peevish, heavy look and the constant rubbing she inflicted on her eyes. The following night she seemed more impatient still, and on the third, from recovering my company, she complained of a headache and left me. I thought her conduct odd, and having remained alone a long while, I resolved on going and inquiring whether she were better, and asking her to come and lie on the sofa instead of upstairs in the dark. No Catherine could I discover upstairs, and none below. The servants affirmed they had not seen her. I listened at Mr. Edgar's door. All was silence. I returned to her apartment, extinguished my candle, and seated myself in the window. The moon shone bright. A sparkling snow covered the ground, and I reflected that she might, possibly, have taken it into her head to walk about the garden for refreshment. I did detect a creature creeping along the inner fence of the park, but it was not my young mistress. On its emerging into the light, I recognized one of the grooms. He stood a considerable period, viewing the carriage road through the grounds. This just struck me. The fact that groom, a keeper of horse, and groom, a man about to be married, that can't be good. That combo doesn't feel right to me. Somebody look up the etymology. He stood a considerable period, viewing the carriage road through the grounds, then started off at a brisk pace as if he had detected something, and reappeared presently leading Mrs. Pony, and there she was just dismounted and walking by its side. The man took his charge stealthily across the grass towards the stable. Kathy entered the casement window of the drawing-room and glided noiselessly up to where I awaited her. She put the door gently to, slipped off her snowy shoes, untied her hat, and was proceeding, unconscious of my espionage, to lay aside her mantle when I suddenly rose and revealed myself. The surprise petrified her an instant. She uttered an inarticulate exclamation and stood fixed. "My dear Miss Catherine," I began, too vividly impressed by her recent kindness to break into a scold, "where have you been riding out at this hour? And why should you try to deceive me by telling a tale? Where have you been? Speak. I'll give you 3 guesses, Nellie, since there's only one place that you could ride to." "To the bottom of the park," she stammered. "I didn't tell a tale." "And nowhere else?" I demanded. "No," was the muted reply. "Oh, Catherine," I cried sorrowfully, "you know you have been doing wrong, and you wouldn't be driven to uttering an untruth to me. That does grieve me. I'd rather be 3 months ill than hear you frame a deliberate lie." She sprang forward and, bursting into tears, threw her arms around my neck. "Well, Ellen, I'm so afraid of you being angry," she said. "Promise not to be angry, and you shall know the very truth. I hate to hide it." We sat down in the window seat. I assured her I would not scold whatever her secret might be, and I guessed it, of course. So she commenced. "I've been to Wuthering Heights, Ellen. I've never missed a day going since you fell ill, except thrice before, and twice after you left your room. I gave Michael books and pictures to prepare Minnie every evening, and to put her back in the stable. You mustn't scold him either, mind. I was at the Heights by 6:30, and generally stayed till 8:30, and then galloped home. It was not to amuse myself that I went. I was often wretched all the time." Girl, if this man is making you wretched, don't do it. "Now and then I was happy, once in a week, perhaps. At first I expected there would be sad work persuading you. I think she's... Last we heard she was 16. At first I expected there would be sad work persuading you to let me keep my word to Linton, for I'd engaged to call again next day when we quitted them, but as you stayed upstairs on the morrow, I escaped that trouble, and while Michael was refastening the lock of the park door in the afternoon, I got possession of the key, and told him how my cousin wished me to visit him because he was sick, and couldn't come to the Grange, and how Papa would object to my going. And then I negotiated with him about the pony. He is fond of reading and he thinks of leaving soon to get married, so he offered, if I would lend him books out of the library, to do what I wished. But I preferred giving him my own, and that satisfied him better. On my second visit, Linton seemed in lively spirits, and Zillah, that is their housekeeper, made us a clean room and a good fire and told us that Joseph was out at a prayer meeting, and Hareton Earnshaw was off with his dogs robbing our woods of pheasants, as I heard afterwards. We might do what we liked. She brought me some warm wine and gingerbread. Oh my God, I want that. And appeared exceedingly good-natured, and Linton sat in the armchair, and I in the little rocking chair on the hearthstone, and we laughed and talked so merrily and found so much to say. We planned where we would go and what we would do in the summer. I needn't repeat that because you would call it silly. One time, however, we were near quarreling. He said the pleasantest manner of spending a hot July day was lying from the morning till evening on a bank of a heath in the middle of the moors, with the bees humming dreamily about on the bloom, and the lark singing high up overhead in the blue sky, and bright sun shining steadily and cloudlessly. That was his most perfect idea of heaven's happiness. Mine was rocking in a rustling green tree with the west wind blowing and bright white clouds flitting rapidly above, and not only larks but throstles and blackbirds and linnets and cuckoos pouring out music on every side, and the moors seen at a distance broken into cool dusky dells, but close by great swells of long grass undulating in waves to the breeze, and woods and sounding water, and the whole world awake and wild with joy. He wanted all to lie in an ecstasy of peace. I wanted all to sparkle and dance in a glorious jubilee. That was nice. I said his heaven would only be half alive, and he said mine would be drunk. I said I should fall asleep in his, and he said he could not breathe in mine, and began to grow very snappish. At last we agreed to try it both as soon as the right weather came, and then we kissed each other and were friends. After sitting still an hour, I looked at the great room with its smooth, uncarpeted floor, and thought how nice it would be to play in if we removed the table, and I asked Linton to call Zillah in to help us. And we'd have a game at blind man's bluff. She should try to catch us. You used to, Alan. He wouldn't. There was no pleasure in it, he said, but he consented to play at ball with me. We found two in a cupboard among a heap of old toys, tops and hoops and battledores and shuttlecocks. One was marked C and the other H. I wished to have the C because that stood for Catherine. And the other was H. And the other H might be for Heathcliff, his name. And the brand came out of H, and Linton didn't like it. I beat him constantly, and he got cross again and coughed and returned to his chair. That night, though, he easily recovered his good humor. He was charmed with 2 or 3 pretty songs, your songs, Ellen. And when I was obliged to go, he begged and entreated me to come the following evening, and I promised. Minnie and I went flying home as light as air. I dreamt of Wuthering Heights and my sweet, darling cousin till morning. I thought I heard my bread go. I did hear my bread go off. Okay. I will now dream of my bread till morning. Okay, we could probably finish this today. Okay, let's rock. Let's go on a cross-country mission. Cross-country bread-fetching mission. I can also get my computer charger because I'm going down. I'm coming. It's for my bread. Also, just FYI, I'm on live stream. Do. How does it look? My dad's here. Everybody say hi. Okay, let's see what's going on in here. Ooh, I don't know about this. It smells good. It looks good. But is it done? But see, the sides don't look all the way cooked, and the only way I can tell is if I flip it upside down and hit it. I don't have to flip it upside down. Dad, I need your help. He just sat down. Okay, so what you're gonna do, this is a very dangerous operation. You're gonna lift up one side of the paper. I'm gonna lift up the other side of the, do you want this?
Yes.
I'm gonna lift up the other side of the paper, knock it on the bottom, and then we're gonna put it back in the thing. Are you ready?
How do we know it's not gonna?
What? We don't. Okay, ready? Don't do that.
I'm just gonna make sure it
No,
doesn't flip this way.
Don't do that. Oh, I understand what you're doing now. No! Okay. That's not super blue. Ooh, look at that. Wow. Okay. Well, it needs more time. They ran off with my other glove. There you are. I'm gonna give it another 10 minutes. It's delicious. Sure? Yeah, it wasn't really a loaf. I don't know. Can we try again? Can you help me lift? Yeah. Will you just lift the paper and then I'm gonna knock on the bottom. Okay.
Oh, I left the paper so you can.
Yeah, that could work. See, I don't think that's ready. And that's not ready.
One fell out. One fell out.
You can't. That was already out.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, 10 minutes. Okay. She's going back in.
So, does anybody know?
Okay, I'm on live stream, so don't say anything extremely revealing about yourself.
I found mine.
I feel like 10 minutes is going to be too long. I'm going to just put it on for 5 and we'll suffer the consequences. Okay. We're off. Excuse me, dog. Excuse me. There he is. Can you see him? There he go. Okay. Beware the bread. She was not ready for bedtime time. Okay. All right, let's try this again. Where were we? Kathy was complaining about something. Okay. On the morrow I was sad, partly because you were poorly, and partly that I wished my father knew and approved of my excursions. But it was a beautiful moonlight after tea, and as I rode on, the gloom cleared. I shall have another happy evening, I thought to myself, and what delights me more, my pretty Linton will. I trotted up their garden and was turning round the back when that fellow Earnshaw met me, took my bridle and bid me go in by the front entrance. He patted Minnie's neck and said she was a bonny beast, and appeared as if he wanted me to speak to him. I only told him to leave my horse alone, or else it would kick him. He answered in a vulgar accent. It wouldn't do much hurt if it did, and surveyed its legs with a smile. I was half inclined to make it try. However, he moved off to open the door, and as he raised the latch, he looked up to the inscription above and said with a stupid mixture of awkwardness and elation, "Miss Catherine, I can read yon now." "Wonderful," I exclaimed. "Pray, let us hear you. You are grown clever." He spelt and drawled over the syllables the name, Hareton Earnshaw. Oh, wait, Hareton Earnshaw? And the figure? What? Oh. Okay, sorry. It was just very confusing who's speaking. "Miss Catherine, I can read yon now." "Wonderful." And I already did that. He spelt and drawled over by syllables the name Hareton Earnshaw. "And the figures?" I cried encouragingly, perceived that he came to a dead halt. "I cannot tell them yet," he answered. "Oh, you dunce," I said, laughing heartily at his failure. The fool stared, with a grin hovering about his lips and a scowl gathering over his eyes, as if uncertain whether he might not join in my mirth, whether it were not pleasant familiarity, or what it really was, contempt. I settled his doubts by suddenly retrieving my gravity and desiring him to walk away, for I came to see Linton, not him. He reddened. I saw that by the moonlight, dropped his hand from the latch and skulked off, a picture of mortified vanity. He imagined himself to be as accomplished as Linton, I suppose, because he could spell his own name, and was marvelously discomfited that I did not think the same. Stop, Miss Catherine, dear, I interrupted. I shall not scold, but I don't like your conduct there. If you had remembered that Hareton was your cousin as much as Master Heathcliff, you would have felt how improper it was to behave in that way. At least, it was praiseworthy ambition for him to desire to be as accomplished as Linton, and probably he did not learn merely to show off. You had made him ashamed of his ignorance before, I have no doubt, and he wished to remedy it and, please you. To sneer at his imperfect attempt was very bad breeding. Had you been brought up in his circumstances, would you be less rude? He was as quick and as intelligent a child as ever you were, and I'm hurt that he should not be despised now because that base Heathcliff has treated him so unjustly. Well, Ellen, you won't cry about it, will you? She exclaimed, surprised at my earnestness. But wait, you shall hear if he conned his ABC to please me. And if it were worthwhile being civil to the brute. I entered. Linton was lying on the settle and half got up to welcome me. I'm ill tonight, Catherine, love, he said, and you must have all the talk. Let me listen. Come and sit by me. I was sure you wouldn't break your word, and I'll make you promise again before you go. I knew now that I mustn't tease him as he was ill, and I spoke softly and put no questions and avoided irritating him in any way. I had brought some of my nicest books for him. He asked me to read a little of one, and I was about to comply when Earnshaw burst the door open, having gathered venom with reflection. He advanced direct to us, seized Linton by the arm, and swung him off the seat. Get that to thy own room, he said in a voice almost inarticulate with passion, and his face looked swelled and furious. Take her there if she comes to see thee. Thou shan't keep me out of this. Be gone with you both. He swore at us and left Linton no time to answer, nearly throwing him into the kitchen, and he clenched his fist as I followed, seemingly longing to knock me down. I was afraid for a moment. I let one volume fall. He kicked it after me and shut us out. I heard a malignant, crackly laugh by the fire, and turning, beheld that odious Joseph standing rubbing his bony hands and quivering. I was sure he'd save you yet. He's a grand lad. He's gotten straight spirit in him. He knows as well as I do. Who should be the master yonder? Are you knocking at my door? Hello? No, I'm crazy. Eck. He made you... Yes?
Buzzer.
Oh, I didn't hear it. Okay. What?
The Dyson.
No, it's not in here. All right, I'm just taking the full book with me this time. Dad, are you free to help me? Do the bread check. Excuse me, cat. Excuse me. Oh, bang. Okay, let's see what happens this time. I'll take it out. I just need you to pull the paper out so I can hit underneath it. You don't seem very confident about this. You see how there's paper on both sides? Do that. No one has seen this. Okay. Okay, made it up higher so I can. Okay. I don't know what noise it's supposed to be making, to be honest with you. I'm gonna try it. It made the same noise as last time. Oh dear. Okay, let's read the instructions. What do the What do the instructions say? It should sound hollow. It definitely does not sound hollow. Dad, would you agree?
Doesn't sound hollow. I agree.
Okay, that's great. All right. We're on the move again. I'm just going to take you to a third location for today. I'm just going to read down here because it's a little bit easier to come to and from. This is our office slash guest room. It's just easier to come to and from here when the buzzer goes. Okay. So sorry, there's so much movement. Okay. This is still Joseph speaking. He's mad you skipped properly. Eck. I don't think we got anything from that sentence. New spot. Where must we go? I said to my cousin, disregarding the old wretch's mockery. Linton was white and trembling. He was not pretty then, Ellen. Oh no, he looked frightful. For his thin face and large eyes were wrought into an expression of frantic, powerless fury. He grasped the handle of the door and shook it. It was fastened inside. If you don't let me in, I'll kill you. If you don't let me in, I'll kill you, he rather shrieked than said. Devil, I'll kill you. Joseph uttered his croaking laugh again. There, that's the father, he cried. That's father. We've a last something of the other side in us. Never heed, Hareton lad. Do not be feared, he cannot get at thee. Welcome, Shivonk. A lot has happened. You've missed a lot in my personal life, but not really in the book. Kathy is relating what's going on. Kathy is relating she's been taking trips to see is a baby, Linton. And the first one went really well. She was like, great, all the other ones are going to go well. But now Hareton has locked her and Linton in a room together and is not letting them out. And she's like, I got to go home. I got to go. And also I'm making bread and it doesn't sound right. Who knows? I probably let it rise for too long. I took hold of Linton's hand and tried to pull him away, but he shrieked so shockingly that I dared not proceed. At last his cries were choked by a dreadful fit of coughing. Blood gushed from his mouth and he fell on the ground. I ran into the yard, sick with terror, and called for Zillah as loud as I could. Soon she heard me. She was milking the cows in a shed behind the barn, and hurrying from her work, she inquired what there was to do. I hadn't breath to explain. Dragging her in, I looked about for Linton. Earnshaw had come out to examine the mischief he had caused, and he was then conveying the poor thing upstairs. Zillah and I ascended after him, but he stopped me at the top of the steps and said I shouldn't go in, I must go home. I exclaimed that he had killed Linton and that I would enter. Joseph locked the door and declared I should do no such stuff, and asked me whether I were born to be as mad as him. It's the great wrench debate. I stood crying till the housekeeper reappeared. She affirmed he would be better in a bit, and he couldn't do with that shrieking and din. And she took me and nearly carried me into the house. Ellen, I was ready to tear my hair off my head. I sobbed and wept so that my eyes were almost blind, and the ruffian you have such sympathy with stood opposite, presuming every now and then to bid me wish. I don't know what that is. And denying that it was his fault. And finally, frightened by my assertions that I would tell Papa, and that he should be put in prison and hanged, he commenced blubbering himself, and hurried out to hide his cowardly agitation. I'll award all wrenches at some point. We can do a rotate. Everybody can hold the wrench. We can all hold the wrench, and we'll hot potato the wrench around. Where is... No, don't boycott. I'll give you all the wrenches you want. Ah, shit. Speaking of wrenches, there's a wrench in my groove, meaning that I have to go check the bread. See, everybody says that baking's all fun and games. And then, hey, Dad.
I think you're gonna have to call it.
What do you mean? I'm gonna have to call it. Do you want unbaked bread? Excuse me. You've heard my breads before, how they sound nice and hollow on the bottom. Well, I'm not ready. Okay, I'm ready. It just doesn't sound right.
You put on the right picture. Let me eat that part right there.
No, I'm gonna eat that part. I'm gonna steal this bit. I feel like I'm gonna give it. Should I just? It's already been in there 10 minutes longer than it should have been. I'm gonna try. Oh, I feel so bad. I'm probably horrifically drying it out. I just don't, want to cut into it, and then it's like, that's not baked. So 5 more. Will I be able? It's on 6 minutes. That's just the price I'm gonna have to pay. Now I have a bit of bread to try. Smelling it. It smells good. Did I just lose somebody? I didn't sign up for baking. I signed up for Heights. Wuthering Heights. It's definitely raisin bread. This is not bacon. This is bread. Take your bacon. It's a little crunchy on the top. It's thick. You said bacon, Shiv. You said I want bacon very clearly. I mean, oh, I'm sorry. Once I get to, oh, nice stain. Once I get to LA, I'll come and drop some off. Shiv, I'll drop some off for you right now. Okay. If my parents will let me, they might riot. Okay. Where were we? I stood crying till the housekeeper reappeared, and she affirmed he would be better in a bit, but he couldn't do without shrieking and din, and she took me and nearly carried me into the house. Ellen, I was ready to tear my hair off my head. I sobbed and wept so that my eyes were almost blind, and the ruffian you have such sympathy with stood opposite, presuming every now and then to bid me wish. Oh shit, I already read this. And denying that it was his fault. And finally, frightened by my okay. Still, okay. Oh gosh. Okay, well, I'm just going to reread it. And denying that it was his fault, and finally frightened by my assertions that I would tell Papa and that he should be put in prison and hanged, he commenced blubbering himself and hurried out to hide in his cowardly agitation. Still, I was not rid of him. When at length they compelled me to depart, and I had got some 100 yards off the premises, he suddenly issued from the shadow of the roadside and checked Minnie and took hold of me. Miss Catherine, I'm ill-grieved, he began, but it's rather too bad. I gave him a cut with my whip, thinking perhaps he would murder me. He let go, thundering one of his horrid curses, and I galloped home more than half out of my senses. I didn't bid you good night that evening, and I didn't go to Wuthering Heights the next. I wished to exceedingly, but I was strangely excited and dreaded to hear that Linton was dead sometimes, and sometimes shuddered at the thought of encountering Hareton. On the third day I took courage. At least, I couldn't bear longer suspense and stole off once more. I went at 5 o'clock and walked, fancying I might manage to creep into the house and up to Linton's room unobserved. However, the dogs gave notice of my approach. Zillah received me and said the lad was mending nicely, and showed me into a small, tidy, carpeted apartment, where to my inexpressible joy I beheld Linton laid on a little sofa, reading one of my books. But he would neither speak to me nor look at me through a whole hour, Ellen. He had such an unhappy temper, and what quite confounded me was when he did open his mouth, it was to utter the falsehood that I had occasioned the uproar, and that Hareton was not to blame. Unable to reply, except passionately, I got up and walked from the room. He sent after me a faint Catherine. He did not reckon on being answered so, but I wouldn't turn back, and the morrow was the second day on which I stayed at home, nearly determined to visit him no more. But it was so miserable going to bed and getting up, and never hearing anything about him, that my resolution melted into air before it was properly formed. It had appeared wrong to take the journey once. Now it seemed wrong to refrain. Michael came to ask if I must saddle Minnie. I said yes, and considered myself doing a duty as she bore me over the hills. I was forced to pass the front windows to get to the court. It was no use trying to conceal my presence. Young master is in the house, said Zillah as she saw me making for the parlor. I went in. Earnshaw was there also, but he quitted the room directly. Linton sat in the great armchair, half asleep, walking up to the fire. I began in a serious tone, partly meaning it to be true. As you don't like me, Linton, and as you think I come on purpose to hurt you and pretend that I do so every time, this is our last meeting. Let us say goodbye and tell Mr. Heathcliff that you have no wish to see me and that he mustn't invent any more falsehoods on the subject. Sit down and take your hat off, Catherine, he answered. You are so much happier than I am. You ought to be better. Papa talks enough of my defects and shows enough scorn of me to make it natural I should doubt myself. I doubt whether I am not altogether as worthless as he calls me, frequently, and I feel so cross and bitter. I hate everybody. Oh, boy. And my timer's going off, so we're going to have to wait to see where that self-loathing speech goes. Sorry, Bubby. We'll be back. We'll be back like before. Be ready, Dad. Hopefully this is the last time, although I kind of doubt it. Oh, look, he put on the gloves this time. Does she look burnt to you?
No.
Okay. Now her. High in the air. It's almost there. I'm going to give it 5 more and then I'm going to call it. You agree?
Yes. 100%.
I think it's getting toasty. I'm going to put a little hat on it. That is a hatter. Here's a baking pro tip for you. If, when you are baking, you find that your bread or whatever, or cupcakes, well, hopefully not cupcakes. Cupcakes are a little easier. Or whatever is burning on top, or if it's a tart or something, or like a custard, just, oh God, I'm looking at whatever. Just put tin foil around it, and that will protect it from burning. Not forever, but just enough, oh boy, just enough that you can get it to bake some more without burning any. And my little tips are starting to get burnt. So I put her back in with a little hat on. And then you can call it a little hat like everyone does in the Great British Baking Show. And then everyone will think you're super cool because you are. Yes, Dane, very important safety note. Please take the tinfoil off before you eat. Like you would take your hat off upon entering a house, take the tinfoil off before you let any food enter your mouth. Please tell me I said house and not health. Who knows? No crunch? What do you mean? Oh, yeah. Okay. You guys have your fun. I'm going to read this book. Okay, here goes Linton. I hate everybody. I am worthless and bad in temper and bad in spirit almost always. Honey, it's just the people you're around. It's just the people you're around. And if you choose, you may say goodbye. You'll get rid of an annoyance. Only, Catherine, do me this justice. Believe that if I might be as sweet and as kind and as good as you are, I would be, as willingly and more so than as happy and healthy. And believe that your kindness has made me love you deeper than if I deserved your love. And though I couldn't and cannot help showing my nature to you, I regret it and repent it, and shall regret and repent it till I die. I felt he spoke the truth. And I felt I must forgive him, and though he should quarrel the next moment, I must forgive him again. We were reconciled, but we cried, both of us, the whole time I stayed. Not entirely for sorrow, yet I was sorry Linton had that distorted nature. He'll never let his friends be at ease, and he'll never be at ease himself. I've always gone to his little parlor since that night, because his father returned the day after. About 3 times, I think, we've been merry and hopeful as we were the first evening. The rest of my visits were dreary and troubled. And now with his selfishness and spite, and now with his sufferings. But I've learned to endure the former with as nearly as little resentment as the latter. Mr. Heathcliff purposely avoids me. I have hardly seen him at all. Last Sunday, indeed, coming earlier than usual, I heard him abusing poor Linton cruelly for his conduct of the night before. I can't tell how he knew of it unless he listened. Linton had certainly behaved provokingly. However, it was the business of nobody but me, and I interrupted Mr. Heathcliff's lecture by entering and telling him so. He burst into a laugh and went away, saying he was glad I took that view of the matter. Since then, I've told Linton he must whisper his bitter things. So if you're gonna, say mean things to me, could you just at least whisper them? Just, do me that. What if we just didn't say mean things to each other? What if we didn't withhold our raisin bread from Jean? So I'm starting a boycott. Now, Ellen, you have heard all, and I can't be prevented from going to Wuthering Heights except by inflicting misery on 2 people. Whereas, if you'll only not tell Papa, my going need disturb the tranquility of none. You'll not tell, will you? It will be very heartless if you do. No. I don't know I don't know how to explain what happened. I'm making the bread as raisin, the bread which you said that I was mean for not giving you. And I can't remember how the rest of it went. I cannot. It's flown the coop. I'll make up my mind on that point tomorrow, Miss Catherine, I replied. It requires some study, and so I'll leave you to your rest and go think it over. I thought it over aloud in my master's presence. What? Oh my God! What? I'm so confused. Oh my God. I thought it over aloud in my master's presence, walking straight from her room to his and relating the whole story with the exception of her conversations with her cousin and any mention of Hareton. Mr. Linton was alarmed and distressed more than he would acknowledge to me. In the morning, Catherine learnt my betrayal of her confidence, and she learnt also that her secret visits were to end. In vain she wept and writhed against the interdict. What? And implored her father to have pity on Linton. All she got to comfort her was a promise that he would write, and give him leave to come to the Grange when he pleased, but explaining that he must no longer expect to see Catherine at Wuthering Heights. Perhaps, had he been aware of his nephew's disposition and state of health, he would have seen fit to withhold even that slight consolation. And that's the end of the chapter, which is great because I hear my timer going off for the umpteenth time. And last, we better be baked. Okay, we're just taking him out. Have you? Okay. Oh no, don't listen to your team. What is happening? No one's playing. Okay, how does that? Did your bag just pop? Okay, are you ready to lift him up? It's not going to matter to me anymore. You don't matter anymore. I hit his butt. You okay? It's gonna have to be. Because that's the end. Everything happens for a reason. Okay. So, in a perfect coincidence of timing, that's the end for today. Dane, to answer your previous question, I chose to bake raisin bread because I did not have time to plan what to bake. So I whipped it together, one of the recipes in a book from the Great British Baking Show that I had all the ingredients for, and one of those was a cinnamon raisin bread, and that is what I have made. So I'm going to log off and go enjoy some of that. Probably not very quickly, though. I need to let it cool, otherwise I will turn into a pumpkin. So, thanks for tuning in. Nice to see you all. Have a good rest of your day. Tomorrow's Monday, so I'll be in at 3. And we'll read chapter 11. We are not even close to finishing. I mean, we are close. We have 9 more chapters. Oh my gosh. Okie dokie. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day. Eat some yummy things. Goodbye.